Welcome to the Living Life Juicy live broadcast. My name is John Losey, and I'm your host for this. This is thoughts on the way life could be, a place to explore life, learning, and vision. One and anyone in any role might be interested in this stuff. This year, I'm exploring the concept of doing great things, but being nice while I do those things. And so today, I want to talk a little bit about the juicy life I'm living. I'm going to tell you a little bit about my encounter with Mr. Rogers this past week. Want to share something I learned from Emily Harburg, a thing called Thoughtlucks, and then share with you the thing to try this week. So let's dive in and take a look at. Let me just share a little bit about what's been going on this year. I decided to take my blog and podcast on Living Life Juicy and use it as an experiment to talk about what it means to be kind as you do great things. And my hope was to put something up once every week, once every other week, right around in there. And it's interesting how life works. Was doing pretty good up until the middle of February. And if you watched my last post, my mom died in mid-February, and it was after a long illness where she was really, really struggling. So there's this mixed feeling of both relief that her suffering was over, but also guilt for a lot of reasons, including feeling good that her suffering was over and that she was gone, but also me struggling with some issues. I was traveling when she died, had to hurry back, lots of different stuff. And what I've been learning about living life juicy, when I started the year, I had all these great intentions and all these plans and a schedule. And I do believe that you need to intentionally choose to live juicy, but living juicy is not the intentions. You need to add being present into that mix. You need to be purposeful, and having a calendar and a schedule is really, really important. But if you are not present in the moment, then all that planning goes out the window because life happens. And I've talked about how these changes and the differences can throw you off track. But living juicy isn't just making those plans, it's giving up those plans when life takes a different turn and being fully present in that moment. And so my life has been flipped upside down, and all my great intentions have been set aside for a lot of reasons. That's one of the reasons that I haven't been posting here as faithfully as I'd like. Am I sad? Yeah. But I'm also glad that I had to turn my life to focus on what was happening in the moment and in the present. And now getting back into the groove of things is difficult. So here I am. It's a wonderful day today. And in that, using that phrase, it is a beautiful day in the neighborhood. And last week, my wife and we'd put our son to bed, and we were trying to decide what to watch. Do we want to binge watch Psych? Or there was this movie that I came across called Mr. Rogers and Me. So I asked my wife, what do you want to watch? And she made a great choice, which was, let's watch Mr. Rogers. Now, I grew up right on the fringe of the Mr. Rogers world. I didn't really watch it as a kid. I knew who he was, and I was impressed by the man, but I didn't know nearly the depth of this man until I watched this documentary called Mr. Rogers and Me. And I'll put links in the show notes down there. And what impressed me was right off the bat, something that he said that really resonates with me, which is he said, that it is more important. Let me say exactly what he said. I feel so strongly that deep and simple is far more essential than shallow and complex. Deep and simple is far more essential than shallow and complex. And I really believe that. I believe that deeply. And it gets back to what this reminded me of, is this idea of presence and the depth and the simplicity of taking a deep breath and being in the moment with an event or with a person is so important. So when I was kind of fretting over how far I strayed from my plans and my intentions for this year, Mr. Rogers reminded me that being present with my family and my loved ones, and even being present with myself in walking through the grief and the guilt, is far more essential than just getting stuff done and checking stuff off the list. And I've said it a lot. I love to say you've got to be willing to suck to get good, and that's kind of the challenge. Challenge to get deep and simple, because it takes time, energy, and effort to weed through the simple and the complex in order to get, or excuse me, not this, the shallow and the complex to get to the simple and deep. It's energy, it's time, and I want in my my life, I would love for the deep and simple to just spring up automatically, and it just doesn't work that way. You've got to be able to sit with. I need to be able to sit with my shallow and complex ideas long enough for that to emerge into something that's elegant. And again, that takes time, energy, and effort. And that's why being present is difficult as well, because you have to purposely step into the moment and choose to be present with all that's going on, all the loud noises and the complexity that life brings, and the urge to go broad and shallow. It takes a moment of reflection and that stimulus pause response to get to be present like that. And in this documentary, what happened was these two brothers went around and interviewed people who Mr. Rogers had a profound effect on. And every single person that they talked to, the consistent phrase was that he was present. He was present in every moment. It didn't matter whether you were a kid or an adult, he was present. And I think this is really important, and I might be able to accomplish that deep sense of presence, 20, 30% of the time. According to everybody they talked to, regardless of who you were, Mr. Rogers was present with you. He took a moment to, when he was receiving a Lifetime Achievement Award from the Emmys, he stopped and he basically took 10 seconds of his speech and he said, stop and think of people who helped get you to where you are. And he asked all these actors and entertainers to pause their life and be grateful. Even more impressive, in 1969, the House hearings or congressional hearings on PBS they're thinking about cutting $20 million. And Mr. Rogers got up there and testified and said just incredibly simple and honest things. And this tough congressman said he got goosebumps, and he ends the testimony with, well, Mr. Rogers, you just earned $20 million. Simple and deep is powerful. Really, really powerful. And so I would encourage you, go check out Mr. Rogers and Me. And just remember, if you watched Mr. Rogers, remember how important it is. He's got, I learned this as a trivial fact, but that he has a stoplight in his house in a set, and it's always set to yellow. And that is a sign to adults and kids to slow down. What a great little picture, and something that always reminded me of that. I shared Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood with my son. And from the start, even the black and white ones, in fact, his favorite one is the first one he watched. He always asked for it. And within watching 2 or 3 episodes, he was singing the songs, and he looks forward to the song Tomorrow. Wow, what an impact that crosses generations. So I thank Mr. Rogers for the present of the present. So wanted to also talk a little bit. I did a great interview. I'm not that I was a great interviewer, but Emily Harburg is she's somebody who's working really hard to get underserviced women, especially young high school aged women, to gain confidence, but not just self-esteem, but self-efficacy. This idea that you get confidence by displaying skills that's transferable to other areas. And she's doing that by coding. So our interview was mostly about that, but she has this thing that she does in Chicago and is spread to other cities called the Thoughtlucks. Now, I was raised in a church, and potluck was something that would gather community around, and everybody would bring a dish, and then you would usually do some sort of a program, whatever. What Emily started doing with Thoughtlucks was basically the same idea, saying, let's find a house, and let's not just take our food, but let's come up with a great topic of conversation and invite people from around the neighborhood, around different neighborhoods, and get, everybody is invited, and they're asked to bring somebody who would be willing to come, who nobody else might know. And what it does is it pops your bubble of what kind of input that you're getting. You create a place, an environment where people can share who they are and what they're thinking about on deep topics like, civil and civic engagement, gender, family roots and values, whatever you want. But this idea that you can invite people to a place, everybody brings a little something to eat, and you share a meal, and you talk about deep things that are close to your heart in a place where people can feel heard, but also hear other people. I was blown away. I love that idea. And at first I was thinking about making it one of the things that I was going to try this week. But the reality is this is a little bit bigger than that. First of all, I have to check and make sure that it's okay with Priscilla, my wife, that we do something crazy like that. But this is going to take some time. Check out Thoughtlucks.com. And again, I'll put a link in the show notes and see if that would be something you'd be willing to try. What if we could gather people who we know and people who are new to us and hear how they think? I'm convinced that yes, there are some challenged people out there. I won't call them jerks, but there are some difficult people out there. But more often than not, there are more intelligent people out there than not. And they have a reason why they think the way that they do. And part of living life juicy is exposing yourself to different ways of thinking. And you don't have to be threatened by that. What this does is help you better understand your point of view if you can understand the limits of it. So think about trying to check out Thoughtlucks.com and maybe there's a nice little how-to. There's some ideas on themes. So check it out. I think you'll find it's really an interesting thing. And kind of on this theme of being present and being intentional and being present, what I want you to try out this week, I'm going to try this at home. And that is a concept that, from listening to Tim Ferriss's podcast, this concept of if you win the morning, you win the day. Now, I don't want to get in competition with the morning, but I do want to take full advantage of that time. Now, in listening to a lot of the top performers that Tim interviews on his show, it's rarely and occasionally he'll talk to somebody who has a young child. And that makes things a little bit different. I wake up early with my boy and we spend the first part of the day together. And I don't want to trade that for some efficiency's sake or whatever. But I do want to be purposeful with the first few hours of my day. And my challenge is going to take 2 weeks, and I'm going to purposely start the day with things that will help me be present for the rest of the day. And what order and sequence I need to play with a little bit. The one thing that I know is that those first couple of hours will include helping my boy wake up and start his day as well. But I also wanted to include some time of meditation and reflection. I like to spend a little bit of time reading the Bible right off the bat. What I don't want to do is start the day clicking open my phone and going to social media. So I want to reduce that temptation and heighten this quiet time. Even before I look at my schedule, I want to choose how I start the day. So the challenge for myself and for anybody else who wants to join me is take 2 weeks and establish a routine to start your day. And see if you can't own that first couple of hours before the world starts crashing down on you. It'll help you step into the day and be more intentional. So that's to try this today. Check out Mr. Rogers and Me. Again, I'll put a link down to the website there. As a matter of fact, here is their website. It's also part of Amazon Prime. So if you have Amazon Prime, you can check that out. But this is the website for Mr. Rogers and Me. And you can see a trailer and all that. I was just blown away by what an amazing guy Mr. Rogers is. And it seems like he's getting there's a resurgence, rekindling of the interest in what Mr. Rogers did and is doing still. So check out Mr. Rogers and Me. Check out Thoughtlucks.com. And then try to own the morning by starting off with a routine. Have a great day, and don't forget to be kind as you do great things.